Hello everybody, I'm Eli, and today we're going to be working on the spear project. This is video number 4 in the series, and today we're going to be working on making the inlays for the spear. I think this is the video that a lot of people have been waiting for because I'm going to walk you through the process in making my pinwheel inlay. Now, out of all the inlays that I do, this is actually the easiest one. It requires the least amount of specialized tooling and the least amount of effort, really. And I was always worried about making this video for a lot of reasons. My biggest concern is that once you put information like this out there, there tends to be a lot of reproductions that are made and a lot of replicas, and I always worry about that possibly bringing down the value of the work that I do. And also my inlay work is a signature for my pieces, so it was kind of a struggle, but I made the decision in the end that by putting this information out there, I'm allowing other woodworkers to take this information and go in a direction of their own. And hopefully it'll bring a lot of new stuff to the table, a lot of new ideas, a lot of new projects and things like that. Now, I've already shot all the footage for this project, and I made the decision last night as I was editing it to break it up into 2 videos, because when I sat down to edit this video I realized that I had over 4 hours of footage, and there was no way to compress that footage into one video that was like an hour or less. So it's going to be in 2 separate videos. I don't know exactly how long each video is going to be yet, but the second video, video number 5, the conclusion of this pinwheel inlay, will probably come out roughly within a week and a half of the first video, which is video number 4 for this project. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started on this project and see where we can go with it. As you can see, I've already taken the time to draw out my inlay, and you can do this one of 2 ways. You can build your inlay first and then build your project around the inlay, dependent on the size of the inlay piece you ended up making. Or in this case, I'm actually building the inlay to fit inside of the project that I have already started. And if you haven't watched the previous videos, this project is actually a spear made out of pentagons, which form a dodecahedron. So what I need is for my inlay to fit inside of each one of these pentagons. So the first thing that I need to do is determine how big, sorry, let me throw that down, how big I want my inlay to be. Well, in this case, I've made the determination that I want my overall inlay from the outside edge to the outside edge to be 1.5 inches overall. Now, I don't want too much space here. I want to keep it somewhat small here, which I think just looks better overall, and that's really the reason why. So I have to determine how big my dowels are going to be that are going to make up this pinwheel shape. And this is actually really easy to do. Whatever the size of your dowel is, the overall width of that is going to be twice the distance of your dowel. So if you've got a 1/2 inch dowel, your overall from this point to this point is going to be 1 inch. In this case, I'm doing a 5/8 inch dowel, which is going to bring me up to a total diameter of 1.25 inches from here to here. And I want an overall of 1.5, which is going to leave me with roughly 1/4 inch space in between the edge of my inlay and the inner dowels. If you have any more questions on that, I'll be happy to answer them in the questions below. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to the lathe and we're going to make these dowels, and we're going to make some allowances for the veneers on the outside, and then we're going to move on to the process of cutting these recesses in it. So let's go ahead and get started on that and see if we can make some progress on this project. So we're in the shop now, and we are going to start shaping our dowels. I have in front of me 6 pieces of Bolivian rosewood. These pieces are cut to 5/8 by 5/8 by 8 inches long. That's all that I really need. as far as length goes for my project. I always like to cut an extra. I'm only going to be using 5 of these dowels for the actual project, but I like to always have an extra one just in case a mistake is made along the way. I don't have to stop what I'm doing and go back and try and make another piece. I've already got a backup piece there waiting, so hopefully we won't need it, but we're going to turn 6 of these. What I have in front of me is a router bit. And this router bit is 5/8 of an inch. It's a 5/8 inch cove bit or round nose bit or ball bit, whatever you want to call it. Everybody calls it something different. And the first step is to find out the exact dimension of this bit. So I'm going to measure it with my calipers here. And I want to look at it and make sure that how I'm measuring it, I'm actually measuring to the 2 widest points there. And I don't want to press really hard into it. I want to come up until it just touches it. Because with carbide, I've noticed that you can actually dig into your metal a little bit and you won't get quite as accurate of a measurement. So when I measure this thing, I'm coming up with 638. If I move down just a little bit, 639, 636, 633. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call it 0.635 inches in diameter. And I'm going to write that number down so that I can just visually see it. And I don't have to remember it. I can just look up and I know what it is and what it's supposed to be. Now that number is overall diameter for this piece. But what we need to account for is the veneer that we're going to wrap it in. So we want to turn this dowel to be slightly smaller than the router bit. And how we're going to do that is I have a piece of veneer, and this is the veneer that I'm going to be wrapping these dowels in. So I have to consider that the veneer is going to be on both sides of this dowel. So I need to figure twice the thickness of this veneer. So I'm just going to break a piece of it off. And ahead of time, what I did was I took all the veneer that I'm going to be using for this project and I measured it all with my calipers, made sure it was all pretty uniform, and I kind of set it aside so I know all the veneer that I have set aside for this project is going to be pretty close to the same thickness for all the veneers. So I took a little piece off of there and I broke it into 2 pieces. And I'm going to take my caliper, I'm going to push it up tight, and as you can see I come up with 0.41 inches, and I'm going to zero that at 0.41 inches. So then I'm going to close it, and I'm coming up with 0.43. I'll measure it again just to be sure, and it's 0.44. Okay, so what I've done there is my calipers are now zeroed at the thickness of the 2 pieces of veneer that are going to wrap around this dowel here. And then I'm going to re-measure my bit, and it's giving me a reading of 593. So I'm going to write that down too. And what I'm going to do with that number is that's going to be my pre-veneer number, and my total number is going to be 0.634. And I've written that on the wall in front of me so that I can see it. It's not going to go anywhere. Now what I've done with this dowel is I've already turned it close. I started with my my skew chisel, if I can find it, this one, and I got it really close to where I want to be. And then I got it even closer. I kind of fine-tuned it with my small skew. This is an oval skew. This is just what I'm comfortable using. As you can see, I've got a nice clean cut so far there. And if I measure this this dowel, I don't know if you can see it on the video there, but I'll just read it off to you. I'm at 639, 636, and 638. Now, where I want to be, because I've already calibrated this for the veneer, is I want to be at point 634. So I'm slightly over that measurement right now, and I already knew that because I got it really close. And I'm going to fine tune it with a piece of sandpaper until I get right down to where I want to be. Now this is a really stiff block. It's got a piece of solid surface in between. It's really flat. I've got a piece of 120 grit on one side and a piece of 220 on the other, and it's permanently glued onto there. When this sandpaper goes bad, I'll just throw it away and make a new one. But at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fine tune it down so that this diameter is exactly 0.634. I'm at 634. I'm at 639 right there, and on this side I'm at 633. So I don't want to take any more off of this side, but I do want to take just a hair more off of this down here. Now what I want to be able to do is set my caliper, or my micrometer, whatever you want to call this thing. I'm at 633 right here. Now I want to actually be closer to 631, 634 overall, but I'm close enough to where it's not going to hurt anything. Actually, right here I'm reading 638, so I'm still a little bit heavy. And when I readjusted my thing, it came out right. I'm at 638. So I'm going to take off just a hair more. I'm at 641 there. No, actually, yeah, 638. And 638. 638. So I'm at 638 all the way across. So I just want to take off just a little bit more. Double check it again. And right now I'm just sanding it with the 220 grit. 634, that's perfect. And I'm at 636 down here. So I'm going to take off just a little more off of this side. This side is right where I want it to be. Six, 3, 4. 634. And I know you can't see this on the camera, but there's nothing I can really do to show it to you that well. So what I'm going to do is set it at 634, and I should be able to take this thing and slide it down, and it shouldn't get loose all the way down. It should feel the same sliding all the way down this thing. If you feel a loose spot or it gets tighter as you're moving it down, then you may need to double check those areas, and that one slides down really well. So at this point, I'm going to do one last thing before I take it off of there, and that is I'm going to go down, I'm going to zero it, if I can get it to work, and what this should read is 0.591 instead of 0.634, because 634 is the total. Again, we're reducing it by the thickness of the veneer, and if I calibrated this correctly, when I measure this, it should be 0.591 if I set it at 0, which it is set at 0. So let's check and see where we're at. Right there, I'm at 593, and here I'm at 592. So that's close enough, and that's going to put me exactly where I want to be when I wrap that veneer around it. So I'm going to basically repeat that 5 more times, get all my dowels prepped, and then we'll get into the part where we wrap them with the veneer. I finished rounding off all of my dowels. I've got a total of 6 of them, as I mentioned earlier. It took me maybe about an hour total to get these all as precise as I could. I measured them, I triple measured them, I checked them for flaws, the whole 9 yards. I probably do a lot of overkill on these, but that's because I want my joints to be as perfect as possible. And if you don't take the time to make sure that all of your pieces are as accurate in diameter as you can make them, then your joints just aren't going to look that good. When you get up close, you'll see gaps and things like that. So it's always best to take your time and make sure that you're as accurate as possible on these. The next step is to get the veneer on them, so let's get started on that. We're ready to start wrapping our dowels with the veneer, and I have one of my dowels right here. How we're going to do that is with a vacuum bag, and I'm going to show you how to make the vacuum bag and kind of explain what I've got going on here real quick. This is just a piece of 1-inch MDF that I cut grooves in, and these grooves allow the suction to pull the air out of the bag, which is going to allow the bag, which I made out of this vinyl here, to wrap around and pull that veneer tight around our dowel. In order to do that, I cut a couple triangles. As you can see, I have, see if I can get this to focus. These triangles are a little bit taller than they need to be. Typically they would be about half this size, but I figured for the video purpose, having a little bit bigger pieces would show up better on film. But I drilled holes through each of them all the way through, as you can see, and I've glued them on, and I'm going to glue, I glued this one on already, but I'm going to glue them on so that those holes are in line with one of the grooves that I cut in the MDF. That's going to allow air to be pulled completely out of this bag all the way through and get a tight seal. Hopefully you can see this as well, but at the top where the hole is drilled, I kind of notched down just a little bit on each side. That's also going to allow more air to be pulled in and not cut the suction off anywhere inside of that bag. The reason that I chose to do it this way, and I'm going to show you another way to do it in case you don't have this available to you or if you don't want to go this route. In my opinion, the other way of doing it is much more time consuming and much more complicated. I started doing this type of work, marquetry work and veneer work, back in like '95, I think was my first veneer project, and I did a box, and I did it all with screw clamps and MDF boards to smash everything flat. But then later on, probably around 97, 98, I got my first vacuum bag. So I've been doing this for quite a while, and over time I've kind of learned how to use it properly. So for me, doing this is much faster. And actually what I would do if I were just doing this as a project and not filming it is I would have, because I'm doing 5 dowels, I would have 5 grooves cut, and I would have 5 stands, and I would do them all at the exact same time. The reason I'm doing one at a time here is because I've actually already done 2 of them, and again, I'm not that great at the filming aspect of this, so I'm on to my 3rd one now, and hopefully this one will go alright. So I'm doing them one at a time for the sole purpose of mistakes with video and editing and stuff like that. So hopefully this 3rd time's a charm, and we'll be able to move on from there. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to a table behind me, and I'm going to show you how to make the bag. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, and if you have any other questions about exactly what I've done here, just ask in the comments below. The other thing that I will add is that I ran this is a piece of 1-inch thick MDF, and I ran a 3/8 inch bevel around all the corners so that they're all rounded. What that's going to do is it's going to keep any sharp edges from poking holes in my bag here. Now I make my own veneer bags. You can buy them, but I bought a roll of this clear vinyl, and I think I paid $6 a yard for it. If you're buying veneer bags, they can be $50 up to $500 or $600. And I just don't see the point in that when you can buy the material that the bag's made out of for $6 cubic yard, a square yard from any marine shop online, and it'll be shipped directly to you. So I'm going to show you how to make the bag out of this. Really cheap, really effective, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to readjust the camera, and we're going to set up and do that right now. Before I show you how to make the vacuum bag, I'm going to show you how to cut the veneer to wrap our dowels in. I've got a piece of veneer already cut in front of me, and how I did that was I made sure that the veneer, how it's going to wrap the dowel, is the flexible or with the grain. If you cut it the other way, it's not going to be flexible. You're not going to be able to wrap that dowel. It's going to break on you. And how I did it was I just marked the length of my dowel and then subtracted just a little bit, because you don't want any veneer hanging over the edge of your dowel when you put it in the vacuum bag. If you have it hanging over the edge, when that vacuum bag sucks down and creates the clamp, it's going to break off any edges that are sticking out past the dowel. So it's best to be just a hair short on each side of the dowel with your veneer. Now when I turn these dowels, I drew an X on each side to center it on my lathe. So what I'm able to do is I can set that line right on the edge, and then I'm going to roll it all the way over, and I'm going to get my mark, and that's going to, as you can see, I have my mark for the total width of the dowel here, but I don't want it to be tight around there. I want a small gap, so I subtracted 5/16 of an inch, and I'm just going to cut that to its proper width now. And I'm just doing that with a razor blade and a straight edge. Real simple, real easy, and what will end up happening is that veneer will be able to wrap around that dowel with no problem. We're going to get to how I actually attach this a little bit later on. I'm going to go ahead and set up and show you how to do the veneer bag now. What I would say about this is now that you have one, you can just lay it down and mark the edges and cut all your veneer all at the same time. and that way it's going to make things simpler down the road for you. In order to make my vacuum bag, I've cut a piece of clear vinyl that is slightly wider. As you can see here, it's roughly 16 inches wider than my board. It's just probably wider than I need it to be, but you definitely want a little bit of play in your bag to wrap around something. If you make your bag really tight for the plate that you're going to slide in there, then you're going to have issues with your glue up. And the length of the piece of vinyl, as you can see, will completely wrap my board here, and it leaves me with roughly about 6 inches on the end. I've got about 3 in the back here. And what I'm going to do to seal this bag up is I've got double-sided tape, and I'm going to put that down the edge and create a seal here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on each side. I'll show you what that looks like real quick. It's actually real simple, real quick and easy to do. I'm going to slide this way just a hair so that I've got a stiff surface underneath of it to actually put my tape on. I'm going to do one side at a time here. I'm going to put my board on. Fold your vinyl over and line your edge up. It's fighting me today, I don't know why. So fold your vinyl over and line your edge up over here. And that's going to give you the length of the piece of double-sided tape that you want to put in there to hold this thing together. That should do it. So I'm going to fold this back now, and I'm going to put my tape lined up with the edge here. I'm going to stick it on, and then I'm going to pull the other side of the tape off. Actually, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that because my table here isn't as wide as I would like it to be. I would prefer to be able to do both sides at the same time, but I need to have a stiff backing on each side to stick it to. See if I can. This is always the hardest part for me. Peeling that. There we go. And we're just going to fold this back over. Yeah, you don't want to do that. And just press it down. And that's going to create a seal for that side of the bag. And we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side here. If I can get my... This vinyl is actually pretty thick, so it can be kind of a pain to work with sometimes, but with the vinyl being thick like that, it actually is a lot tougher, and it's going to be able to stand up to more abuse. You can go with a thinner vinyl. I just don't really recommend it. I prefer to use a thicker vinyl. Let's go ahead and stick this side. I try to make sure there's no air bubbles in the double-sided tape, no gaps, so that when I put suction on it, no air is going to be able to escape, and I'm going to get a much tighter seal. I've had it before where I had a bubble in there and it wouldn't give me a complete seal. Sorry, I'm trying to focus on this at the same time. Okay. So I've got my veneer bag. It's basically, for all intents and purposes, pretty much done at this point. They do make valves that you can put in the bag to hook to your vacuum pump that will turn on and off. And I have some. I have no idea where they went. So I'm going to do this slightly different when I go to actually put it under a vacuum. But for now, I'm going to set my vacuum bag off to the side, and I'm going to take the piece that the dowel that I'm going to be putting the veneer on, and I've got some CA glue. Sorry about that. I've got some CA glue, and I'm just going to put a little dab. It doesn't take much on the 4 points of my stand here. I mean, it's hard, you can't see how much I'm doing on there, but I can tell you it's very minimal. I want to be able to pop this piece off after I'm done with relative ease. I don't want to have to struggle with it. I'm going to let that set up for just a second. While I'm letting this set up, I'm going to prepare a few things, and I'm going to come back and we're going to go through the process of actually gluing. All right, so we've got our vacuum bag made, and our dowel is attached to our base block here with the vent grooves cut, and we're ready to start veneering this thing. We've cut the veneer to the proper size, which I have here, and if I was doing this for myself and I wasn't filming anything, I would have all 5 of my dowels in a row, and this process would actually go pretty quick. And this should go pretty quick here. And I'm going to try and explain things as I go. So let me try and give you a closer look at this dowel. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but this dowel is centered on my risers here. And that's going to give the bag the ability to wrap all the way around this. And if I were doing multiples, I would make sure that my bag was fairly loose, because I would want to have my bag dip down in between each one so that my bag had enough play to suck down onto each one individually. If you just put the bag over it and press go, you're going to end up with some problems. It could even break your risers going through here. So that's something that you'll have to play around with if you decide to go this route and glue it up like this. One thing that I do want to mention about why I do it like this, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later when I talk about the second way of gluing this up, is these dowels are never 100% exactly the same diameter. So by using a vacuum bag, you're able to pull that veneer around there perfectly onto each piece, and it's going to conform to each piece individually. So if they're slightly different in diameter, even if it's minuscule, it's still going to create perfect veneer around each dowel. So let's go ahead and get started with this. The first thing that I'm going to do is take my piece of veneer, and I've got a rag here and it's damp, and I'm going to get each side wet. Now I'm not getting it soaking wet, so I don't know, you probably can't see that, and you can see it's starting to cup as I'm getting it wet. So what you want to do is you want to dampen both sides, and again, you're not getting it sopping wet, you're just dampening it. The reason why is it's going to make this veneer much more flexible. If you try and veneer such a small diameter without getting that slightly damp, your veneer is most likely going to crack. and you want to let that set for a couple seconds. But while you're letting it set, I've got some glue over here. You can go ahead and start to put your glue on the veneer, and you don't want to go too overboard on this. It doesn't take a lot of glue. I'm just rubbing it on my finger. Some people use a brush or whatever they want to use. I don't care, it's just wood glue. And just as a reference, I'm actually using Titebond 2 for the wood glue. But I've got a nice even coating here. And as far as the water affecting the glue, I've never had an issue. Once the moisture dries out of the veneer and the glue is set, I've never had any issues with it coming apart again. And I've been doing this for quite some time, so I would say it's kind of been tested. Now again, this is my method. If you want to play around with it and try and figure out a way that works for you, that's fine as well. And I have a couple small pieces of blue tape cut here, and what I'm going to do is, I don't know if you can see it, but my dowel slightly overhangs on each side of these. It's not even with that, and the reason why is I want to set my veneer up, and I want to try and make sure that while, sorry, I'm trying to concentrate, that while I'm putting it in the veneer bag and all that, it's not going to move around on me too much. So that's what the tape is for. And it's not really holding anything down. The only thing it's really doing is keeping it centered on top of my dowel for me. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. I'll spin it around. And at this point, we're going to slide it into the bag. In this case, I'm going to put the veneer, the dowel, towards the back of the bag instead of towards the front, because I'm going to have my vacuum hose coming in on this side. And I want to make sure that I've got enough play in my bag here, which I do. So because I don't have a valve like I was saying earlier, the good thing about vinyl is it's kind of tacky, so you can, I mean, the surface will kind of create a good seal if you just roll it up a little bit and put a clamp on there like that. I've rolled it once or twice there. And we're going to do the same thing here. Just put a little clamp. We're just going to go down, put a couple of these squeeze clamps. And this actually works pretty well if you don't want to spend the money on the valves that go in there. The valves are really nice though, and I do recommend using those whenever you can. So I'm going to go ahead and hook my vacuum pump up to this thing, which this is the vacuum pump that I'm using. It's probably going to be off camera over here, but this one will pull 3 cubic feet per minute, I think is what it is, or it's 3 or 5, something like that. And you want your hose to be in line with one of your grooves there, so that you don't kind of tie up the suction process at all. And now I've kind of wrapped this vinyl around the tube a time or two here. And we're just going to put a couple clamps on it. As you can see, nothing crazy going on here. I'll try and move it over and give you a closer look at my tubes coming into the end, and I've just got clamps on it to create a seal. And we're going to go ahead and turn the vacuum on and see what happens here. Plug it in. Sorry, my cord's getting in the way. So I paused the camera real quick. I had to readjust how my bag was clamped up. So I went ahead and did that, and I just put a solid straight piece back here to kind of seal my bag up. and made sure that I had a good airtight seal. And as you can see, this bag is now pulling everything completely tight the way that it's supposed to be. And there's a lot of force being put onto that dowel and pulling that veneer down tight to it. When it's all done, we'll take a closer look at the veneer. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this dry. Then we're going to come back and look at all the dowels when they're done. And we're going to talk about another way to clamp this up. This is the way that I prefer to do it, and we're going to go over why and the difference between the two styles of clamp ups. There's actually probably about 3 styles of clamp ups that you can do this with, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and let this do its thing, and we'll talk about the other ones once I get set up real quick to do that. Again, thanks for watching this video number 4. If you liked what you see, feel free to share it, and please subscribe to my channel. Video number 5 will be out within a week to a week and a half, as I stated earlier. It's just too much information for one video. If you have any questions about what you have seen so far, just ask questions in the comments below, and I may even be able to kind of address those questions in video number 5, because I'm not done editing that yet. For more content, you can always follow me on Instagram as well. I tend to post a lot of pictures and small videos of projects in progress before I make the large YouTube videos. So if you're interested in following this work a little bit closer, just follow me on Instagram. And thanks for watching my video. Hopefully I'll see you for video number 5. Thank you.